Thank you, Dean Nasser. I guess we need all of you to respond to the call of reform.
I know.
Because Dr. Nasser needs all of you to be involved in order to reform what's happening, not just in the education sector, but also in the labor market. I hope that we're going to start doing this right away.
I forgot to say hello. تحية لطلاب سوق الغرب بلمان بزنس. أول سوق الغرب نحن من 3 سنين we started سوق الغرب وأنا أول مرة طلعت سوق الغرب كانت أول سنة. Last year I couldn't because of personal reasons. So I never met the guys, so I was very happy to see them here today. So hugs and kisses لكم شباب.
Thank you, Dean. Now we're going to be with the former chairman and CEO of Standard Chartered. He's a Columbia University graduate. He's now retired. He runs a real estate fund. Hope we're going to take the most advantage of his presence. Chairman Azzi, the floor is yours.
Retired? What? Retired?
I think she had meant tired.
I think he meant tired.
I have some good news and bad news. The good news is, as a practitioner, rather than academic, I'll be much shorter than Professor Nasser. The bad news is I'll be much less eloquent. I'm going to talk about 2 parts of what I call financial and economic illiteracy. One of them is the rampant illiteracy in society. And the other part, I'm afraid Dr. Nasser already addressed, which is the return on investment of a college degree. I'm going to look at it again from a practitioner's perspective, from an employer's perspective, as the person who would be employing or who used to employ when I was not tired. So I will get into that. I'll start real quick on the effects of a massive shortage in skill set and knowledge in the market in Lebanon. I will speak about the shortage of knowledge about time value of money, the CAPM model of assessing investments, which is the risk-free rate plus a risk premium, proper market studies whenever we open businesses, developments like real estate that you see around you, the concepts of supply and demand, again, very lacking in our system in Lebanon. And then a very simple concept, because a lot of people mistake something called desire with demand. And finally, the same, and I promise you, I printed this before Dr. Nasser spoke, return on investment of a degree.
You're stealing his idea.
Exactly.
I saw you.
You could look at the timestamp. I did it last night. So the difference between demand and desire, I want to address it now before I move on. If I asked you guys now, how many of you would like a free Ferrari? Free Ferrari. Even free?
How many?
Learning petrol to make noise and ruin our environment, that has nothing to do with freedom.
Okay, for the non-Scandinavians here. Okay, now how many will pay $500,000 for it? How many will pay $500,000 for a Ferrari? Okay, so many less hands go up. So the first part is something called desire. The second part is something called demand. I will, for the Scandinavian parts, a Volvo hybrid vehicle, free. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know how to use a non-Apple computer, so Okay, this is a classic supply-demand curve. The higher the price, like the example of the Ferrari, the lower the demand, and the higher as the price goes up, supply goes up, and then the equilibrium point is the point at which the 2 curves meet, and that's the price, the equilibrium price. Real quick, my favorite topic, and Dr. Hukaym's. Okay, great. So this is a graph from the data set of transactions in the top 6 markets of real estate in Lebanon that are Beirut, Kisarwain, Matan, Alay, Abda. Did I say 6? And one more. Anyway, this is 60% by volume, 90% by dollars. You see that the peak was in 2010, went all the way down. The curve from 2010 to 2016, that is the demand curve. So you can plot that right above the graph that I did before. And of course, as you know, the price today is higher than it should be based on the demand, right? We know that. It's somewhere between the real price and an artificially held up price. So the red area there, that is the excess surplus that is generated. I wish I had a laser pointer. So the real price should be down here at the bottom where the black and green lines meet. The actual price it's not that high, but let's call it that high, which means a lot of surplus supply is going to go into the market, and this is what you see, all the empty buildings and cranes. Okay, and the more that the price, they fight that price through subsidized BDL loans or collusion or whatever, the more surplus and the bigger the final crash will be, until a catalyst takes place, which may have happened today. Now, back to the time value of money again. Is it better to reduce a price of a property by 50% or wait 10 years? This is I don't know if you can see this, but basically, if you reduce your price today, you know how you hear somebody say, I don't need money, I'm not in debt, I can wait 10 years to get my price. How many times do we hear that in Lebanon? Okay, this is a quintessential example of financial and economic illiteracy. If the guy sold it at 50% today, invested it at the risk-free rate of 8.5%, which, by the way, is probably higher as of an hour ago, then the difference is 13% strictly on cash, and of course he's paying 2% a year of maintenance, painting, security, so he would have been 35% ahead if he sold it today at half price than waiting to get his price in 10 years. This is a direct manifestation of lack of economic and financial education in our system in Lebanon. Another example, I saw an ad the other day, 6 years, 0% interest. What does that mean? What does that translate to if they understood discounted cash flows and time value of money? This is the equivalent of having sold it at a 25% discount today. If you just reduce the price 25%, same exactly, mathematically, actually better because he doesn't have to pay. Okay. Now we're going to go to the overlap between me and Professor Nasser. He actually mentioned some statistics. I decided to look at a couple of universities. One of them is Berkeley, in University of California, Berkeley, one of the top engineering schools in the world. The tuition, and I know he used an average number, $14,000, okay, a year, in the top engineering school in Lebanon, and I know I'm being presumptuous here, and I'm not going to name it, $35,000 a year. Average starting salary at Berkeley, $92,000 a year. In Lebanon, we don't have statistics, but I'm going to take the number that 50% or less are going to be employed, and if they're employed, they will make at best $1,200 a month. University rankings. A lot of times, people will pull up a Google and tell me that, for example, today, I think the latest one, King Fahd University is number 1, or Cornell Doha, it's Cornell Doha, and then NYU Abu Dhabi, okay, the franchise. AUB went up, AUB went up, American University Sharjah, whatever. And to me, those rankings are meaningless. They mean nothing, because the only stats that matter in those is, to me, there's 3 stats that matter in those things. And again, I'm going to talk metrics. If you're worried about self-fulfillment, it's a different matter. To me, I like to talk about metrics that are measurable. So measurable metrics are, am I going to get employed by spending all this money in this degree? What is my average starting salary? And what are the number of job offers that I get when I graduate, before graduation? Those are the only metrics, in my opinion, any statistics matter. When I went to Columbia, the statistic was 97% employment before graduation. This is 19 years ago. Average starting salary, $140,000, 3 job offers per person. That means I just had to be not the dumbest 3% and I'm done. Perceived prestige, again, Dr. Nasser talked about this. I promise I did this before. The perceived prestige of the degree is not monetizable. Yani you cannot sell it. You cannot sell the prestige, I went to the best school. And one more thing, if you have to Google it, it ain't the best school. Right? Do you have to Google Harvard? Anybody here hasn't heard of Harvard? You haven't heard of Harvard? And finally, on that topic, if you pay a developed world tuition, I think you should expect a first world salary when you graduate. This is the degree, using the same stat I used before. This is, if you invested that $140,000 at the average return of the S&P 500 or the Wilshire 5000, you would have, at 64, your retirement date, you would have $7.66 million. So you could bypass, I didn't even include your investing when you were 17. I just took it from 22. It's even more than that. If you go work as a waiter somewhere, okay, and just put that money in tuition, by the time you retire, this is your pension. So therefore,
don't believe him. Don't believe him. There'll be no more students at the universities. Don't believe him. Don't believe him.
So the question is, has an undergraduate degree in Lebanon become simply a launching pad for a graduate degree overseas? It's a legitimate question. If that's the case, is this the best path to get there? My point is that you, the students here, are the customer. You're paying for a service. Hold the service provider accountable. Again, Dr. Nasser mentioned accountability, muhasabi, accountable for the service you paid for. Why aren't you asking for the statistics on employment? Why aren't they published? Darja?